Hi everybody, Joel Kennedy with Kennedy Violins. So today is a play-along video, and every week I throw a dart at the dartboard and the dartboard selects what song we're going to do. I got Suzuki Book 1 through 5 up there. Once we run out of those songs, then we'll put a bunch of other stuff up there. Okay, so this week is out of Book 4, and it is the Vivaldi Concerto, first movement. Okay, so this piece is a lot longer than a lot of the pieces that I cover, so I'm not going to play through the whole thing and then offer suggestions. I'm just going to play each section and then talk about each section. Now, normally it might take me 3 or 4 lessons to completely go through a piece like this, which is, hours of instruction, but I've got like 15 minutes, so I'm just going to cover the high spots, okay? So here we go. Okay, so I'll mention a few things here really quick. So the first thing we want to do is ask ourselves some basic questions, right? If you've seen my videos before, you know articulation, dynamics, key signature, time signature, where do we want to be in the bow, these kinds of things. Okay, so we are in the key of G major. No, we are in the key of C major, actually. We're in the key of C major, so we have no sharps or flats. So that means that all of your fingers are going to be in their natural position. Okay, and for time signature, we have a C for common time. So that means we're in 4/4 time. We have 4 beats per measure, and the quarter note gets the beat. Okay, so now let's talk about our dynamics. So we have basically 2 dynamics in this first section. We have forte. Okay, so pretty loud, pretty rambunctious, and yeah, it doesn't really change much. I think there's some dynamic stuff that you could do, but they don't mark it in there, but we can talk about that later. Okay, the other dynamic that we see is at the end of the third line, there are 2 accents and a sforzando, right? Okay, so this part is actually really important, and this gets to our articulation a little bit. So we have 2 dots above that third finger and the fourth finger in that last measure. Okay, so those 2 dots mean that those notes need to be staccato, so they need to be separated, and they're accented, right? We see those little sideways V's on there. So we have 2 separated notes with accents on them. So we want to really kind of emphasize those notes, stop the bow in between those notes. And then it's followed by our D natural, right? And that's with a sforzando with an accent. So sforzando means it's basically you're really attacking it as ferociously as you can without sounding too ugly. Okay, so this part's, and we also see we've got those little alligators, right? So it wants us to shape the phrase. It wants us to go towards that third finger and fourth finger. Sorry. We go towards those notes and then, right, and then really land on that, okay? So from a mechanical point of view, just to reiterate, we want to stop our bow, and then, right, and then accent that sforzando. Now, the easiest way to accent that sforzando is not to have your bow moving too fast. So, so you'll notice I'm in position, the bow is very close above the string, then, right, and then I'm attacking it almost from a stopped position. So when you have a sforzando or a double accent or something like that, a lot of times it's easiest to do that when you're at the very frog and your bow is basically stopped before you do that. Okay, so Some other articulation that we have is the legato markings above the notes. So in the very beginning, we have them. Okay, so those lines obviously mean that these notes need to be connected. If they weren't there, it might be, or if there was dots, it might be, right? But we have lines, so it's, and you'll notice that we have lines above some of the other notes as well. Right? So there's a lot of notes here that have these kind of legato markings on them. Okay, so the last thing that I'll mention about this section is on the fourth line, last measure, we have martellato written. Okay, so martellato is basically saying really emphasize these notes, detach them. So they're detached notes, they're really emphasized, and it's going to be very, very strong, you know, and the notes are very separate. Right? So martello, right? So really place those notes. That means that you're stopping the bow after all of those. And then really place this one. Good. Okay, so continuing, we have a lot of the same stuff, but it's mezzo forte. So now it's a little bit less strong. Okay, so let's talk about that second section a little bit. Okay, so going on with the second section. So there's not as much to talk about in this section. We have dynamics. We have a mezzo forte, so it's a little bit less strong in the beginning. Then it goes to a piano dolce. So it actually wants us to get pretty quiet there and change the character of our sound from an aggressive sound to a sweet sound, right? Right? So we really want to switch like, oh, I don't know, maybe, oh, you know. So you're kind of backing off, you're kind of changing the character of it. Maybe you're changing the conversation a little bit, okay? So that dolce is important. We also see we have a piano coming up on the next line, and then we have a martellato marked again with the same thing as it was before. So not a lot of new stuff there. You just got to really pay attention to the piano and the dolce. Okay, so let's jump to the next section. Okay, so with this section, it's kind of cool. So it starts out piano, and we have an accent on the downbeat, or the first grouping of four notes. Now, up until now, we've been kind of towards the lower part of the bow or the middle bow. But for this section, we're going to want to be in the upper part of the bow and then use that index finger to use that and the little weight of your arm to accent the beginning of those four note groupings. Okay, and then we have those little alligators, right? So we're going towards the middle of the measure every time. So da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, ya-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, right? Every time. So we want to da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And the character of this piece, it's a little bit, you know, it's not quite as strident and kind of, you know, loud and blocky. It's like we got that dolce again, right? So, and also you'll notice that I changed the bowings. If you're looking at my PDF on the screen, you'll notice that I've got down, up three, down, up three. So the bowings that they put in most of the Suzuki books, I don't like it, right? I think it's very blocky and obtrusive, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Now, If they do it intentionally like that just because it's harder, then I get it. Because if you can do it, then you'll learn something from it. You'll learn bow control and other things. But I don't play that game. I'm not playing it now anyways. I'm picking a bowing that I think is true to the spirit of the music, that makes the most sense, that is going to be more enjoyable to play, and it's going to sound better at the end. Okay, so that's that section, right? Really pay attention to the dolce, those little alligators, and the accents. Okay, so now we have the next section. Okay, so this section is generally, I find that students have their most trouble with this section when they're learning the piece. Probably because their position is somewhat new and they've got that leap. Okay, so they have a little bit of trouble with that sometimes. So here's, if that's you and you're having a little bit of a trouble with that shift, if you're having a little bit of trouble with that shift, there's a couple things that you can do. So number one, and these are just practice techniques that I've taught over the years to help students with this section. Number one, practice it slow, obviously, and practice and play it as many times as you can correctly before you speed it up. Okay, that's number one. You'll never be good at this if you practice it too quickly. You have to practice it slow. That's number one. Number two, practice it without the slurs. So then to make sure it's really in tune, right? Really, so and then there's other little tricks you can do. You can change the rhythm. Okay, so if you're really having trouble or you really want to strengthen your left hand, just change the rhythm, change the bowing, and that will strengthen your left hand. Okay, now in terms of the shift, okay, so remember when you're shifting, make sure that thumb moves with your hand. Okay, don't leave your thumb behind, don't put it forward, don't do crazy stuff, right? Okay, and you can also do first finger, then fourth finger. So then you slowly make that first finger a little quieter. So until, okay, so those are just little tricks that if you have a private teacher and they're doing a good job, I think, teaching you this piece, and they've taught it a lot, they know all these tricks. So I'm just showing you all these tricks that you can use to make sure that you're able to play it. Okay, so moving on, you'll notice, at least in my edition, we have these brackets from the second measure and the third measure of the top line, right? So right. So what they're telling you is to keep your third finger down. Keep that third finger and two and one. Now that one's different, right? it's low 1 to natural 1, or you can play alternately 2 and then low 4. But probably you can just get away with just low 1 to natural 1. So then keep those fingers down, except for that one you have to move it. But you don't want to be picking your fingers up. You don't want to do pick it up, place it down, pick it up, place it down. No, ultimately or optimally, you really want to put your third finger in a position where you just have to kind of maybe move it over a little bit, but you don't have to pick it up. So, okay, good. So the next section actually is just more of the same, right? Piano. Okay, so let's talk about the next section a little bit. Okay, so starting the 5th line down, last measure, we have a lot of the same stuff that we've been playing, okay? So we've got fortes, we've got our dots, we've got sforzando, we've got dolce, we've got, yeah, it's pretty much the same stuff. So let's just play it. Okay, so with these, remember, when you have these staccato markings, stop your bow. Okay, now we have the next section. Now we have, it's in 3rd position, but it's dolce. So we want to be the upper part of the bow, and we have the same articulations we had before. So, then short, short, short. Mezzo piano. Then, okay, so kind of hard to play and talk at the same time, but hey, that's what you do. Okay, so yeah, that section we want to stay in the upper part of the bow, so we can get the we can stay piano a little bit quieter, but also it makes a lot of that legato stuff a little bit easier. Ah, that sounded terrible. Okay, so you notice how the 3rd line, last measure, they start putting these tenuto markings at the beginning of the 4th notes, or the beginning of these 4-note groupings. And all right, so they're really trying to show us how to shape the phrase. Right? La 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 la. Right? You almost have to imagine somebody's kind of, having a conversation or yelling at you in Italian, being very emphatic about something, right? So you remember when your articulation markings, dynamics, all that stuff, shaping your phrase, it's about communication. It's about speaking through the music. So these kinds of markings and really making sure you speak as much as you can with every note and every phrase that you play is really important. And if you think of yourself as speaking, then a lot of the stuff just kind of takes care of itself. Okay, let's move on to the next page. Okay, so you'll notice that I've changed the bowings again. The same as last time, right? So you have down, up 3, but I've left, and so where they've indicated 4 separate notes, I've left that in because it's cool, there's nothing wrong with it. It adds variety. So you'll notice in this section that one thing that's changed is that the dynamics go down to double piano, even though it's technically more difficult. And then it goes to a forte. So the composer really is trying to create an effect here, right? All right, so we gotta try to start really quiet. Okay, so we've got to start really quietly. And how do we do that? We stay at the extreme tip. And then we crescendo to that forte. Okay? So this section, it's really, really, really important that you practice it super slow, because some of the fingerings are they're little finger twisters. Again, if you have to practice it with separate bowing, if you have to change the rhythm, employ that tactic. Remember, always slow the metronome down, play it as many times correctly as many times as you can, and then speed the metronome up. So then, at the very end, what do we got? So at the end, we have pretty much just more of the same. It's dolce, again. Okay, so more of the same, right? And I might be playing it a little fast, but I'm trying not for the video not to be too long. Okay, so it isn't. You don't have to play it this fast, obviously, but I don't want the video to be 1 million years long. Okay, the very last line. What do we have? Okay, so at the very end we have the tutti, right? Second line from the bottom. That probably means the violin's playing, the orchestra's playing, everybody's playing. Okay, so we have our sforzando, first measure, right? And then we have a forte at the end with accents and staccato markings and a rallentando molto, right? So we want to slow down and make a big deal out of the very last note, right? So right here. To the fra. Okay, big ending. Okay, so that's the quick and dirty instruction for this particular movement. Okay, so let's see what we're going to be doing for next week. Okay, so I have my dart here. I took my instruments down because I don't want to put a hole in my instruments. I don't trust myself. Okay, so the song for next week, the piece, whatever you want to call it, we're going to find out. Okay, we have Book 1, O Come Little Children. Okay, so we're going from Book 4 to like Book 1, O Come Little Children. All right, so a lot of variety here on the channel. Okay, so guys, I hope this video helped. If you have any questions about anything, I've taught the song piece, a million times, so I can probably answer just about any question you have. Put them in the comments below. I'll answer them. Like and subscribe to the video, subscribe to the channel, and like the video. Yeah, okay, that's about it. So I hope you guys have a great time practicing, and I hope you have a great day. So we'll see you later.